Thanks for clicking. Canadian real estate prices are under a full-scale attack, according to a note to clients from the Bank of Montreal.
It's about bloody time. What do they plan to do?
With Canadian home prices up over 20% over the past year, and the pandemic appearing to be fading,
Heard that before.
it seems as though policymakers have finally turned their attention to the rising home prices in Canadian real estate. The note from BMO lists 4 factors, 4 attacks on Canadian real estate prices. So what I want to do today is go over these 4 attacks outlined by BMO, discuss whether or not they will work to lower home prices in Canada's real estate market, and then look at what to look for next. Speaking of what to look for next, the federal budget is set to be released on Thursday, April 7th, and we've been promised that there are going to be some new measures in the budget for housing. So we're definitely expecting some big news for that, and we're also expecting to see the Bank of Canada's rate announcement next week as well, and we'll have updates out for each. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, let's get into this note from BMO. The first attack on Canadian real estate from policymakers is interest rates.
Big surprise.
Well, we've spoken before on this channel about rising interest rates impacting the Canadian housing market, as there's been a flip with these rates making housing more and more unaffordable. The Bank of Montreal notes that the expectation of rising rates could cause a major disruption in Canadian real estate. While many are expecting the Bank of Canada to raise rates by 50 basis points next week in their policy announcement, this note and others have pointed to the idea that we could be in for even more rate hikes as the year goes on, with Bank of America actually predicting that we're going to be in for 150 basis point rate hikes over the next few months. B of A is saying that we could be in for 50 basis rate hikes in April, June, and July, totaling 150 basis points over the next few months, which would severely impact the amount that buyers are able to qualify for when getting their mortgage. Whether or not the Bank of Canada will go that high, that fast, remains to be seen. But the note from BMO says that basically the writing is on the wall and that we are seeing the end of cheap money. The report notes that 5-year fixed mortgage rates are already around 4% and variable rates should be well into the 3% territory by early summer. This market was feasting on low 1% rates throughout the pandemic, no longer. So according to this report, and we kind of already knew this, but this was the first attack, policymakers raising interest rate, first attack on Canadian home prices.
What's that, huh?
Second and third, this note from BMO looks at the foreign buyers taxes being imposed by Ontario and Nova Scotia as further evidence of attacks from Canadian provinces on Canadian real estate. The first non-resident speculation tax, or foreign buyers tax, was introduced last week by Premier Doug Ford in Ontario. While Ontario had previously had a 15% foreign buyers tax, only in the GTA, the announcement last week bumps that amount up to 20% and expands it to Ontario-wide. So, whereas previously it was only 15%, only applied to the GTA, now we're at a 20% foreign buyers tax and it applies all over Ontario. Nova Scotia, for its part, is implementing something similar, though not as drastic. It's going for a 5% foreign buyers tax and a 2% annual property tax. Both of these taxes are aimed primarily at reducing demand, so if you make it more expensive for foreign buyers to get into Canadian's real estate market, we will have less demand, which should lower prices. So that is attacks 2 and 3, according to BMO on Canada's real estate market. And attack 4 is an attack that has yet to be seen. It's an attack coming from the federal government in its release of our budget on Thursday. While no one knows for sure which measures will be included in the budget, among those being considered are an anti-flipping tax on properties held for less than 12 months, an end to blind bidding, a new tax on real estate investment trusts, and perhaps tougher down payment requirements for investment properties. As a side note, some are expecting an expansion of the shared equity program that was introduced by the government a few years back. Also known as the first-time homebuyer incentive, is where the government matches your down payment but also takes ownership of a portion of your house. The program has been wildly unpopular, as it turned out that Canadians didn't want the government owning part of their house.
Yeah, no Sherlock.
But we will save our criticism for that program when and if it comes out, but that is one of the measures also being considered. But will these measures work? Will higher interest rates, will foreign buyers taxes, will these new taxes on investment properties work to cool down the market? One of the main criticisms leveled against all these reforms is that they only address demand. They do not address supply. John Pasalis, president of analytics firm Realosophy Realty Inc., said certainly the bigger policies that the provinces can be focusing on are things like obviously increasing density, adding supply, probably doing some sort of provincial ban on things like Airbnb, those type of things. And I think that's a fair point. Obviously, we do have a supply problem in Canada, and increasing supply would definitely put downward pressure on Canada's real estate market. With that said, pricing is a function of supply and demand. Although these attacks on Canada's real estate do not address supply, they do address the other part of that equation, the demand. If you make it more expensive through interest rates, through foreign buyers taxes, through more down payment requirements, if you make it more expensive for people to get into the market, you are going to reduce demand. A reduction in demand, even if you keep supply the same, will reduce home prices. They may not reduce them as quickly as some had hoped, as some would be hoping that they would, given the massive rise in our real estate prices, but it's not as though they are going to create higher prices. So if the rise in interest rates, the foreign buyers taxes, the new down payment requirements, the end to blind bidding, if all of these factors do reduce demand, we're going to see a reduction in home prices in Canada going forward, even if the supply remains the same. With that said, we are going to have a much better idea of what Canada's real estate market is going to look like over the next 12 months on Thursday, as the government is releasing that new budget with lots of new housing measures, we're being told. And even more so, we'll have an even better idea the week following when the Bank of Canada released its policy rate. We'll obviously have updates on this channel. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, and thanks so much for watching.